Hey guys, welcome to Reddit Brew. Today, we're back at it with the JUSTNOMIL Crazy Grandma Saga, which, hold on to your hats, because these next two parts escalate very quickly. If you missed part 1, I will link it now as well as in the description below. Let's see what else the delusional narcissist grandma has blessed us all with. My grandmother just stole my birthday cake. It was my birthday on the 15th, and I spent the day at work and then went out with mates, so I didn't see my parents on the day. Usually, this isn't an issue. My parents will text me or call me on my actual birthday, but they're fine with not seeing me. This year has been a bit different though, as my brother left the country about a fortnight ago, so 3 out of 4 of her kids are now living halfway across the world, and my mom isn't dealing particularly well. Anyway, I agreed I'd see my parents this weekend, and we would do a lunch and cake to make everyone feel a bit better. I fucking love carrot cake, so she made me a carrot cake birthday cake. When we came back from lunch, I did my duty and let them screech happy birthday at me and blew out the candles. We were far too full from lunch, so decided to try the cake later. About half hour later, my grandparents turn up uninvited, which was fine. Mostly small, annoying shit from my grandma. Then my grandfather wanted to have a closer look at the new drive my parents had put in. So we all wandered down to look at the new security gate and the cattle grid, etc. Except my grandmother decided to wait in the house because it was too cold outside. Fair enough, but I wasn't staying with her. So I went to go look at the gravel too. They left not long after. I hung around for another half hour before getting ready to leave too. I went to get my cake and it's gone. It's nowhere. The gnarly old boot stole my birthday cake. So my mom texted my grandmother, "Did you take OP's birthday cake?" And she replied with, "I thought that was our share." Your share? It hadn't even been cut yet. A full cake is not your share. You didn't even ask. You just took it, you wrinkly old walnut. Don't worry, I went over and stole it back. My grandmother just stole my birthday cake. Update. If you didn't read my last post, basically, I went to my parents to do birthday cake on the weekend. My grandparents turned up, and while we were all outside looking at the shiny new gravel, my grandmother stole my birthday cake. When called out on it by my mom, she replied that she thought it was our share. It was a whole, untouched cake. I then stole it back and didn't hear anything from anyone for the rest of the night. The next day, she texted me, "Don't you ever sneak into my house again. I had no idea who was there. You're lucky I didn't call the police. You scared your granddad too. He almost had another heart attack. He could have died, and it would have been your fault. You watched me walk around the house. I don't care. Rude, rude, rude. And you stole friend's grandkid's birthday cake. It wasn't yours. I didn't take your cake. That's lies that your mom is spreading. I spent hours making that cake for her. You will be replacing that cake, girl." Huh, funny. The cake I took had "Happy Birthday, OP" on it. It was also filled with holes from candles and was in a Tupperware box with my parents' last name, which is not her last name, on it. I haven't heard anything from her since. This morning, I got a text from my dad. "Just a heads up, your gran is telling people that you stole money from her on Saturday. We're dealing with it." Which basically means she ran to either my uncle or eldest cousin, who was exactly like her, and they, instead of talking to me, ran to tell on me to my parents. Edit. So I just had a wee Facebook stalk of the person she said she was planning to give my cake to. Their birthday isn't until May. Now, whether that means she genuinely doesn't remember that and was going to pass my cake off as something she'd baked, or if she knew and just plucked a name out of her arse, hoping I wouldn't find out, I don't know. And I don't care, to be honest. Both are lies. Jumping in on the my shortest male story bandwagon with the time my grandmother thought I was pregnant. I couldn't stop throwing up at school one day, so my mom picked me up. We swung by my grandparents' place on the way home for some reason, and I ran in to be sick. As I ran to throw up, I said something along the lines of, "Ew, that smells horrible," in regards to the lamb they were cooking. When I came back out, my grandmother was screaming and crying at my mom, calling her a bad parent because I was obviously pregnant. I was 8. My grandma, and the first time she almost killed me. Yes, it's happened more than once. For those of you not following along, this story is about my maternal grandmother. She's the one who ruined my parents' destination wedding, gave rather peculiar Christmas gifts, stole my birthday cake, and thought I was pregnant at aged 8. But this post is about the first time she almost killed me. I was one of those babies that could sleep through the apocalypse. This has not changed. And I slept like the dead right from day one. And I rarely woke myself up when I got hungry. Instead, I had to be woken up every few hours to feed. I'm not 100% sure what the advice for parents is now, but when my grandma had kids, the advice seemed to be never wake the baby. Let the baby sleep for as long as possible. If it needs something, it'll wake up itself. When I was around 3 months old, my parents left me overnight with my grandma for the first and last time while they attended a wedding. I was fed mid-morning before they left, and my grandma claims she fed me again in the afternoon before putting me down for a nap. The instructions my parents gave were clear. Wake OP every X number of hours and feed her. However, grandma knows best. Grandma has raised 2 children, and we all know that the ability to fire a human out of your vag and then not kill it makes you a certified pediatrician. So she did not wake me, and I didn't wake myself. The next morning, my parents arrived to pick me up, and I was still asleep. According to my dad, grandma was bragging about how I'd been such a good baby for her, that I'd slept through the night and hadn't cried or fussed once. Well, there was a fucking reason for that. I was in a coma. She'd left me so long, we still don't know how long, that I'd become severely dehydrated and hypoglycemic enough that I was only just reacting to pain stimuli. My parents rushed me to the hospital, and I turned out fine. Well, that's debatable, but there was no long-term damage, and no evidence that I'd gone into convulsions. While my parents were in the hospital dealing with me, Grandma went into self-preservation mode. She told as many people as she could, including her husband, my maternal grandfather who wasn't there that night, that I was in a coma and might have brain damage because my mom had dropped me on my head. She then ran off to hide with her sister in England for over a month. My grandfather and more than a few members of my extended family to this day still believe my grandma's story. He still makes jokes about things I do being because I was dropped on my head. Great googly moogly, for lack of better words. And trust me, my language was much more colorful when I read this on my own. Many beeps would be put in right now if I repeated my thoughts. But like, what the actual? How did this delusional woman raise 2 children? And her husband believed her story? Forget what I said in the last video. I would just be going no contact with the lot of them. How OP's mother has maintained a relationship with this woman after she destroyed her wedding and nearly killed her baby is beyond me. Grandma is a master manipulator and liar who has clearly broken down and manipulated the crap out of her husband and daughter, and I feel terrible that they have this woman in their lives. Honestly, OP should really sit down with her mom and discuss therapy, because OP's mom needs to go no contact and rid herself of the toxicity that is her mother. But wait, there's more. There's one last part that I will be reading for you guys next time that is even more flabbergastingly awful. I know, how can nearly killing your granddaughter be topped? But let me tell you, this woman truly has no soul. I'll see you guys in part 3.